All right, we're live. What's up, guys? excuse me. What's up, guys? Man, so excited about today's episode. I just can't contain myself. But I want to welcome everybody to Deck Talk Podcast. I got to turn this volume down some odd reason, being an idiot and left it up. But man, we got one heck of a show. We got a good friend of ours coming on. But guys, if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin. How about that intro, man? Just wants to make you get up and groove. Oh, yeah, I'm Norman Lee. But, before we get the show started, we got a heck of a show. That's right, Colin. But we got to do some business first. We got to talk about one of our sponsors for tonight's episode, Spirit Point Performance Hooks. Hooks proven and tested to put more fish in your boat using their proven V-grip technology. Spearpoint hooks will perfectly present lures and provide the most secure connection between hook and fish, giving you the ability to help you prevent fish from shaking off. Spearpoint hooks are designed to perform and trusted by anglers all across the world. Go to www.spearpointhooks.com. Don't forget, make sure to use that discount code DECKTOP10. Again, that's spearpointhooks.com. Don't forget, use that discount code DECKTOP10. See what the buzz is about. Get your Spear Point performance hooks today. Man, we have a great show lined up today, and we got one of the guests coming on. This actually is his second time joining us on the Deck Talk podcast. But anyway, here we go, guys. Let's just get started with the introduction. He is a field rider, events planner, a teacher and educator of the outdoors, and one of the most sought after fishing guides in South Florida on both fresh and salt water. In 2009, he founded Fishing with America's Finest, which is an organization that helps our U.S. veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder by using fishing and the outdoors as a therapeutic measure to help them catch peace and tranquility. One of the best peacock fishermen that we have had the honor of sharing our boat with, the man with the plan, our buddy, Neal Stark.
What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Man.
Yes, sir, man. It is an honor to have you back on with us, Neal. And talk some more about that South Florida fishing going on down there, dude.
It's been pretty good, man. We've had a lot of fronts coming in that are tearing stuff up a little bit. The lake's been on fire, and the largies are moving up onto the beds and onto the banks, and bedding down deep as well. Peacock fishing right now has been a little quiet due to the cold weather coming through, but it should be turning on real soon here. Turning turning fire, man. I mean, there next couple of weeks here, probably back to 100 fish days.
Yeah, well, man, you talk about that, Neal. You're starting to get me amped up too soon. You know what they say about you don't want to get too amped up too quick because you lose it by the time it happens. But man, I'm ready to get down and start jacking some of them big ass giant largemouth down there. But you keep talking like that, I'm going to head out tomorrow instead of Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
I just say I've been stoked about going back down to the Everglades since we left Neal last July after I cast. I mean, I don't know if you can ever have enough of that. That is
never, man. That was awesome, man. We owe that day to Neal because, brother, if there's anybody that could put you on fish like that, then big peacocks and Colin, we must have caught how many peacocks over 4 pounds that day, dude? And we were catching them left and right, and that just goes to show how good of a peacock man Neal is because he just had a stroke in him. I mean, shoot, what do we have? We ended up with like 10 or 15 doubles and a couple triples.
Triples. Hey, but Neal, if I do remember correctly, you might remember this too. I think we had somebody that was back boating us a lot of the time too. So we could have had more fish than what we had if we didn't have somebody
Like,
backboating us.
It was
no,
brutal.
man, come on, I don't backboat you guys.
I don't know if you remember, Colin, but I actually got cut off a couple times
Yeah,
by that backboater.
yeah. And what about the dude that
I was going
that
back into my old FLW days, backboating my co-anglers.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but I mean, guys, when you go out fishing with Norman, I mean, you do have a good time. But if you catch a nice fish, I mean,
no,
Neil had good. I mean, a nice 5 pounder or 6 pound peacock on. Norman threw his line right on top of Neil's.
over,
Yeah,
over,
and it ended up. I mean, he
and
lost. It broke the line because of. I mean, the friction on the lines just broke, and
That oh, whoa! That's not the way that story went,
no,
guys.
that's how I. That's
The
what
way
the
that
camera
story went
saw.
was Neil's fish just happened to run across my bait at the same time I had a 4 pounder on,
negative,
and
negative.
my line just sawed his in half.
My story goes, I had a 6 pounder. Norm threw over there, hooked about a half pounder, and started sewing on my line. That's the way
Yeah,
I saw it.
Hey, you know what?
yeah.
I guess when you never get it in the bone, it can be as big as you want it to be, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, guys, it was a blast. I mean, and you can just see with us just cutting up and having fun, busting some people's chops on it. I mean, and that's how it is when you go out with Neil. You're going to have a blast. You're
Yeah,
going, if you want to learn about how to catch a certain species or just to go out there and just have fun, Neil is the guy to be able to take you out. We have a blast. And I mean, we're even planning on here this next July being able to go out with him. And, we can't look. I mean, it can't come fast enough for us, Neil, because man, we have been stoked since the time we left that boat ramp to have to go back up to Sebring Lake Placid area.
It's a blast, definitely. And my favorite thing is to go, lighter tackle, man, and really feel those fish, let them pull on you a little bit, and have a blast, man. If I recall, we caught over 100 fish that day. It was
yeah.
it
Yeah,
was it was something else. And talking about doubles, I actually had a double myself on the
yeah,
Oh
on
yeah.
on a whopper plopper.
yeah.
Yeah, I I might be able to pull that. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was great.
yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. And we had a couple wallies, uh, water lizards coming around trying to get our peas, and
Yeah,
that's
they got.
the time.
I speaking of that, I mean, I did feed one.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And if you haven't watched the video yet, to all of our viewers, go on the YouTube channels, and we actually filmed the whole trip. So we got some good footage of Colin feeding the gator, and we got some pretty good slow mo. Gator footage as well on that video, so make sure you go check out that video.
Yeah,
And
I
kind of, it'll show what Captain Neil could do down there, and the kind of fish he'll put you on.
yeah, and I've never thought. Which Neil. I mean, we talked about it while we were down there. Like that was my second time ever being down in the Everglades fishing, but throwing that. I mean, well, I don't know if we want to talk about your little secret bait that, but throwing that topwater bait that we threw, just, I mean, it was phenomenal. I would have never thought that would be what's triggered them because we threw spooks at the first time, threw spooks at them all day long and little pop-ars and stuff like that. We did not get the hits that we got when we were out with you throwing that other bait. So
No, for sure. Let me tell you, the Livingston lures. I don't know if you guys throw those a bunch, but they got EBS technology. They kind of croak like a wounded bait fish, and even when you're not using the lure, it's just sitting there. It's actually working for you while you're not working the lure. They're pretty unbelievable for peas and largies. And our trip was peacock, but regardless of what species you all want to catch, you want to come down to South Florida and experience it, we got big old snakeheads down here, up to, you know, 30, 35 inches long, and peacock bass. You got largemouth bass. We got invasive species, everything from Oscars to jaguars to cichlids to you name it. So
Yeah,
Florida's a pretty cool fishery, man. Depending on what you want to catch, and you can go conventional tackle, um, bait casters and fly fishing. I mean, it's a blast to catch them on flies. And when y'all come down in July, that's something we probably should try next, man. Maybe hooking some of them bad boys up on some flies.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that'd be cool.
Well, I do have a question though. Did I'm getting a little back feed on something. Um, but have you been able to use the Chattown lure jigs that we sent you?
I'm fixing to. The fish are just starting to come up on beds now. I was out today and I saw several big fish up to probably about 7 pounds coming up on the beds, and they're not locked on just yet. There's some smaller bucks, but I would say in the next week or so here, I'm actually going to capture some video of
Heck yeah. And
crushing some giants on you guys' jigs, man.
yeah, and what we'll do is we'll tie some more for you and bring you some down when we come down in July.
But I can tell you, man, I checked them out, and I played with them a little bit in my backyard. Back here, I got a pond out back that's got some peas and largies in, and they're eating them like candy. So I'm real excited about putting them to work on some giants out there.
Heck yeah. So but so do you just don't guide just on the peacocks and stuff like that. I mean, you actually do largemouth and just like what you said, there's with the snakeheads.
Yeah.
Um, now,
Oscar,
was when the Oscars was that an Oscar? I can't remember if it was an Oscar or a cichlid that I caught that had the teeth. It looked like a big old brim, but it had teeth.
big old teeth. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a cichlid. That's a
yeah.
yeah.
So, but them things, I was talking to my dad earlier about it, and he was asking like how does it fight comparable to a peacock, and I was like it doesn't quite fight as hard as a peacock, but I said but them things are just bait for anything around. I said so they're running for their lives.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean it,
One species we didn't catch that much. I think you caught a couple of them. Calling was Oscars, and our last couple previous trips. Of course, the year before, you know, Colin was with me, and then I was there. I think one or two times prior to that, but we were crushing Oscars all day long on the Zero Spook, and I mean they were Oscars about the same length as your Spook, were just coming up and annihilating it. And when you'd have them on, they were fighting every bit as hard as a 2 or 3 pound bass would. Small Oscars. So talk a little bit about how I mean that. I think pound for pound, from what I could see, those Oscars are the hardest fighting fish I've ever seen. For as small as they were and as hard as they fought, and to just come up and crush a Zero Spook that in some cases wasn't too much smaller than the Oscars were.
The Oscars are brutal fighters, man,
Yeah,
and let me tell you the a good size Oscar will go into the poundage, man. I've caught them into the 2 and 3 pound class, and they are
wow,
massive fighters. And there's a time of year here around June, July that we get a huge influx of folks from up north, from the Carolinas, Alabama, Georgia. They all come. Oscars are delicious eating fish, man. They come
yeah,
from all over to catch those, and it's when they're on, it's nothing to have a 150 fish day, man. They're unbelievable. Great baits for them are little beetle spins, and some folks go live bait on them, little minnows and um, uh, uh, grasshoppers and crickets and all kinds of stuff like that. But they are brutal fighters, man, and pretty much will eat anything that you you throw out there. But those are the top baits that I mentioned for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. But is there a time like because I know that you said something to us, especially out like when we were out on the boat. Is there like a season to where you can keep them, or can you keep them all year round?
Year round, year round. It's an invasive species.
Right.
Um, but to really load up on them, I mean, I've seen guys come down and literally fill a 120 quart cooler full of Oscars, man. And there's no limit on them. And once again, it's a great eating fish.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, yeah.
So so do you do any like I know you told us before that you done like some offshore fishing and stuff like that. Do you still do like the do you do the inshore and stuff? I know your son does the tarpon, which we got to get down there and get on the boat with him doing some tarpon fishing.
Tarpon,
And
snook.
man,
Yeah,
I just couldn't. I can't imagine, especially catching them snooks and stuff like that on them flies, like how I've seen them. Man, it,
it's unbelievable. You know, you get out with him at night. It's he does a lot of night fishing for the snook and tarpon, and you can get tarpon up into the 180 pound class with Jake. He's definitely got that dialed up. And for folks that want to do that, man, that's something to experience. Catch those big giant silver kings and and snook. Um, and in freshwater, I know I mentioned all those different fish, but we also have freshwater snook and tarpon that are landlocked in the Everglades, and the cichlids uh, that you were talking about with those big teeth, the small cichlids, like half dollar size, silver dollar size, maybe 3 inches long. They're a great snook bait, man.
really,
Yeah, you drop those down there around structure, and you can get some really nice freshwater snook with the little mine cichlids and stuff. Those are snook candy, literally.
yeah. Well, we got a couple questions for you. Um, the first one is from Michael Lindell, and he's wanting to know what's Neil's favorite bait on Garcia with the morning temperature around 47. So,
So I I,
uh,
I love a chatterbait up there on Garcia. Um, I definitely love a chatterbait with a nice trailer on there. Uh, Also rattle traps and I always love some type of swimming bait. Man, I love a swimming bait up there. I'm actually heading up there this Sunday um, to help some folks pre-fish against Mike Wendell on the following Sunday. So we're fixing to open some can up on Mike Wendell. I'm glad you asked.
speaking of opening a can, what
Yeah.
about this past weekend? You opened a can up on this past weekend.
Yeah, it was a good weekend, man. We fished the King of the Glades series this past Sunday. Some of the best anglers in South Florida and come from all over. That's a great series. Mike Lindell is the director of that King of the Glades series. I've had the honor of fishing that series since my son Jake and I. He was a little boy, and we started fishing that series together, and it's a fantastic series. Like I
Yeah,
said, some of the best of the best. And
yeah.
um, this Sunday was tough, man. We had a cold front blow through on Sunday. The first couple tournaments of the year, Mike always picks them really good. It's either snowing or or 40 knot winds. I fished in tornadoes in these first couple of tournaments where Mike always picks them, and he picked a good one on Sunday. We had a cold front blow through, rain so heavy you couldn't even see, man. The fish were blowing up, and Jake, he heard them splash. He said, "Where is he? Where is he?" I said, "I wish I could see him. That's how hard it was raining." Freezing cold rain, but um, It was tough, man. It was a tough tournament, man. Usually in the glades, if you ain't got 20 pounds, you don't even come to the scales. And this was a tough one, man. The fish kind of buttoned down a little bit, and I found areas pre-fishing where the fish were up on beds, but they pulled off. They pulled off the beds, and what a lot of folks in the glades don't realize. Folks are used to catching those fish up shallow on the beds. A couple feet of water where you can see them. But uh, spending so much time in the glades over the years, the even in these fronts, those fish, there's a lot of fish that bed down deep. They're 6 foot to 10 foot of water, and that's what put us in second place in this last Sunday's King of the Glades tournament.
Yeah.
I knew those fish would be down there deep. I know that the fish that were up shallow would pull off of those beds, and we targeted those fish down a little deeper. Um, Using finesse stuff. A lot of guys in the glades, they want to throw big stuff, man. 65-pound braid and the spook like Norm's talking about. You know, Mike Scott did twitch, twitch, boom, but they wasn't twitch, twitch, boom in this past Sunday. We had to go finesse. And you guys have seen that fishing with me. I like to drop down to the skinny line and light
Yeah.
tackles, small reels, and that's what got it done this last Sunday, man. We went deep and dragging stuff on the bottom, and we put enough in there to get us in the second place. Missed first place by just a little bit, and
That's less than half a pound, is what, if I remember correctly, something
yeah,
like
it
that.
wasn't far off. It wasn't
Yeah.
far off.
But also, John Pate got on here and he says, "What's up, guys?" And he says, "Ask about the two pontoon boats he has and how many veterans has he taken out in the last 17 years? Uh, and ask about the program and where is it heading." So, guys, if you don't know what John is talking about, he's talking about fishing with America's finest. And so, with that being said, Neil, we'll let you take over that question.
That's a great question, John. So 17 years ago, I read that we're losing 22 veterans a day, unfortunately, to reentry issues and suicide. And my idea, as a fisherman and how we all feel being out there was to share that experience with vets. And I had no idea if they would feel what we feel as fishermen, but um, they do. They do
Yeah.
feel that, and it's been unbelievable experience. And when I first started, I would take them out on my personal uh, rig, my bass boat, and unfortunately, you're limited with a bass boat. It only holds a couple people,
Right.
um, and it's hard for some vets depending on their circumstances. And so my dream was always um, was to be able to get a pontoon boat and rig it out the same way that we have our professional bass boats rigged. Electronics, trolling motor, live wells, down scan, forward scan, literally trick out a pontoon boat where regardless of the vet's condition or who the vet wanted to bring with them, whether it be their mom, their dad, their grandma, the whole family, and get them all out fishing. Um, and my dream came true um, probably 8 years into the program. And
Okay.
we built what we call the Piscatorial Patriot. And folks, for those of you who don't know what piscatorial means, piscatorial is fishing therapy. Piscatorial therapy is fishing therapy. We named her the Piscatorial Patriot, and she's She's a 22 foot by 10-foot rigged out pontoon boat that can accommodate vets whether they're in chairs or regardless of their circumstances. And she holds up to 10 veterans. And just yesterday, I picked up, which she's been in transition, actually started before COVID. which is our second pontoon boat. Um, uh, and we named her the Veteran. Both boats just got are completely rigged with brand new Yamaha motors and electronics from Lowrance and uh, Minn Kota trolling motors and just totally tricked out. And I'm stoked and I'll send you guys some pictures here. She's still in the transition, but the Veteran is completely stripped out and to accommodate folks in chairs and veterans in chairs um, and we're really stoked, man. The program continues to grow year in and year out. We do 6 huge events every year. That we do a shoreline type of event where we have. We just finished up in December a family day. We had over 500 veterans and their families there. Um, and the program continues to grow. John actually is comes out and has supported us for many years and volunteers. And this program is, which I think is important to let folks know. There are no salaries in Fishing with America's Finest. It's a true non for profit. It's all volunteer based. Our board is all retired vets and it's Americans. 50% are fishermen that volunteer their time, and the other half is veterans. We have over 133 volunteers in Fishing with America's Finest,
Wow.
and in 2019 we won an award for over 5,000 credited rehabilitations through the outdoors and fishing. So the program continues to grow every year, and um, in 2019 when we won that award, it's called the Life Changer Award. They asked me a cool question, when I was going to quit, how long I was going to do Fishing with America's Finest. And my answer was, as long as we have vets coming home suffering, I'm going to do it. And when it gets to the point where I feel I can't do it anymore, I'm going to hand the program over to someone else. And God willing, the program will continue to do its work. Um, and 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 it was built on fishing, and it was built to bring our people home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you brought up events. You what you do is so much goes so much beyond just on the water with the veterans. And I'll bring up one that comes to mind pretty quick is um, you do events. Just for example, when we have a deployment with military soldiers, you had an event fairly recently. I think it was like the uh, late going into fall or the end of the last summer anyway, where there was a bunch of military personnel getting deployed. Well, you had an event for their families, and each of them got to take something home in the way what they could use when they got deployed, stuff like that. But you also brought up the volunteers that help too, such as John Pate, Mike Lindell. You know, you wouldn't be able to do what you do and be as successful with Fishing with America's Finest Foundation without the volunteers that get out and help you, like Mike and like John. And there's so many others, the fishermen that help take veterans on the water when you have events, stuff like that. So there's a lot more to it than just on the water as far as the events and the people that kind of help out with it as well. So a shout out to all the people that spend their donate their time for that great cause as well, man.
Roger that.
Yeah.
Roger that.
Now, John Pate said, "What does it take for sponsorship to come in and be involved with the program?"
Um, that's a great question as well. Um, I mean, you know, uh, sponsors could come in financially, equipment, as you can imagine. We go through quite a bit of line and hooks and plastics and hard baits. Um, the program can use all that stuff. Everything from dollars to volunteers to equipment, and whether it be fishing equipment, what I mentioned, or if there's a company out there that has some type of device, dehooker, or um, some type of equipment that would help the vets transition, whether it be on the boat or off the boat, life jackets, all that stuff. Uh, the program could utilize.
Yeah. Now, can you see like is it more or less like a when they're out on the water? Is it more or less like a? Can you see like the stress and just like the daily world events for them? Because there, I mean, there's like millions of things going on in their mind. I mean, because they seen stuff that we can't even think about with not being veterans and stuff like that. That they have seen. They've done things that I mean we can't even fathom to even think about. And they done it all just because for the freedom that we have here. And so, but when they're out on the boat, can you actually like just see that stress just kind of just getting off their shoulders, and they're actually finally able for 4 or 6 hours or however long that they're out, they're finally able to. Oh, you can almost like just see them just finally breathe, catch that fresh breath, and be able to just soak in everything that's coming to them.
You totally can see that. You totally can see that.
That's awesome.
I could tell you, when I first started this, I could go to my very first trip, and I got a young man. He had 3 deployments. His name was Matt. Um, Served in the United States Army, and he was in Iraq. And you know, I meet him. We shake hands. He doesn't make eye contact. You can see there's tremendous amount of weight on his shoulders. It's something I'll never forget. And here I am, a bass angler. I can't wait to get him in my souped up bass boat and take him down the canal 70 miles an hour. But the first part of where we went fishing in the Everglades is a no wake zone, and I'm idling and I'm watching the blue heron take off. And I watched this young man watch that blue heron take off, and he's watching it. And then I see an ibis take off, and he's watching that, and he's watching all these birds, and he's taking in all this nature. And by the time I got to the end of that no wake zone, I realized that we're not going on a 50-mile-an-hour ride or a 60-mile-an-hour ride. And we ended up idling and just letting this individual that has served our country
Yeah,
for 12 years take in all that nature, and then to watch him cast and set up on a fish and see his expression when he landed it. And he hadn't seen his father for years, and being deployed. And for folks that don't know, when somebody's son or daughter or husband or father, brother, sister is deployed, there's no contact. There's no contact. They can't write their parents and go, "Hey, I'm over here in Iraq," or call, or Afghanistan, or call. So nobody knows where they are, if they're what their condition is, if they're alive, if they're not alive. And he got his father home, and I had the honor of taking the two of them out fishing and
man,
letting
that's awesome.
them reconnect on the deck of our bass boat. And I came home and I thought, being a tournament fisherman and fishing, and I thought I have experienced everything in fishing, and I realized I had experienced something new.
Yeah,
And it was at that point that I realized that this wasn't going to be that trip. This was going to be something that I was going to do, and here we are, 17 years later, and I'm still experiencing um, that feeling, those trips, and it never changes, guys. It's unbelievable, you know, to share what we all experience, to cast, to whatever point or on a piece of structure and show somebody to set up on a nice fish and reel it in, and it's an amazing experience. And it's a therapy, man.
Yeah.
We get out there and we think, hey, man, it's a blast and it's fun and we love it, and we don't realize what exactly that feeling is, but it's a feeling that puts you at ease and
Yeah.
makes you feel good, and it's special, man. Fishing
Yeah.
is truly special, and it's
Now,
something that should be shared.
yeah.
Yeah,
Has
we've heard you say this quote before, Neil. It's not always about catching fish; it's about catching some relief and some tranquility.
Amen.
yeah. Now, has fishing with America's Finest um has that, let alone it's changing the veterans, like, I mean, it's giving them that relief and stuff like that. What has that done? And you might not, I mean, I imagine you have, I mean, just because I can tell just with you telling that story that it has. What has that done for you? Has it changed your mindset of really like, man, I'm out here every day, and it's, you have you realized that, like, man, I'm blessed to be able to come out and see the nature every day. Has that opened up any kind of eyes of, like, really kind of like, I really haven't seen it, just like what you said. We idled instead of going 70 mile an hour. We idled so we can just soak that in. Has has that been one of the biggest things that has you've realized, the kind of, let's slow this sucker down and let's enjoy everything that Mother Nature has out there for us to enjoy.
No, listen, I've always loved the outdoors. I've you know like you guys mentioned earlier, I've fished offshore, inshore in the flats and the 10,000 islands in the Florida Keys, all the way to inshore into the Florida Everglades. I've always loved fishing, and that's where and it's always brought me peace. Um, but I've never realized until I started to share it that it's not just me that that felt that feeling. It's something, and that's what I was telling y'all, that it's something that it should be shared.
Yeah,
Not just with vets. For you guys out, that are listening today, you know, another thing I think, take a kid fishing, man. Share your knowledge with folks. It's something that should be shared. Um, but you know, sharing the fishing and seeing how it affects the vets, has it opened up a different perspective of what we visually see? Definitely, man. It definitely.
yeah,
And I could tell you it works, man. It's not to get all spiritual on you, but in the Bible, we're we're fisher of men. Um,
that's it.
there's something to be said about that. It's fishing is definitely something I think was created for us to enjoy, and I think it's something for us to share, and I think it has a lot more substance than to, rather than just to go out and tournament fish and catch fish. I think it has a lot of spirituality in it, and I think it has a lot of power.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that being fisherman of men, I am in the process of, and Norman don't know this. Only a couple people know this. So Norman's learning this as much as the 1,100 people that's listening to this are watching it.
I'm not in Collins Loop.
No, you're in the loop, but I'm working on something.
I
Uh,
also need a bib.
I see that. I'm working on a shirt design that kind of goes on that aspect of things. That once I get it designed, Neil, I'm going to have to send it to you, because I think it's going to be a pretty cool idea. And I'll tell you once we get off of here, I'll kind of give you the lowdown on it. Um, but I have a guy named Jason commented said, "Do you only do fishing with America's Finest in Florida?" He says, "I live in Middle Alabama. Is there? Uh, do you come? Do you go to other states, or do you know of a place in Alabama that does the same thing?"
I do not. So when I started fishing with America's Finest, my dream was to create the pontoon boats. Initially, one, now we have two. Another dream of mine is to have Fishing with America's Finest organization, to have chapters throughout the United States, and eventually become a national program. But to answer that question, we do not have a Fishing with America's Finest in Alabama. However, um, if that individual would like to come down to South Florida, we definitely could put something together for them.
Yeah,
Fishing with America's Finest, for folks that don't know, when you come out with us, it's um, a very uh, detailed guided trip. There are no costs to the vets. We supply everything from their lunch, which is custom to what they want to eat, all their drinks, all the tackle, rod and reels, hooks, baits, whatever they need. Everything is covered by Fishing with America's Finest. They receive uh, rod and reel combo they get to take home. They get a shirt, custom shirt by Fishing with America's Finest. There is zero cost to the veteran.
yeah. And is there ways like because I've got on the bottom, guys, to where if you're interested in fishing with America's Finest, I've got the website and stuff up on the bottom uh, of the screen here. But Neal, is there a way, like, let's say somebody wants to donate $100 for gas? Is there a way that they can do that, um, or if they want to send some baits or something like that, they have baits that's just collecting dust in the garage that they can send. Is there a way how they can do that? I mean, because we can definitely do a with the deck talk guys. I mean, Norman and myself, we can do like a fundraiser to be able to raise uh, to get donations. And I know that we can get it to you because we'll run into you a couple times a year. But it's somebody that is not around close to where we're at or close to where you at. Is there a way that they can ship stuff to you or ship or send you money for whatever to where y'all can get what you need?
Yes. So you have the website up there. You could go to the website www.fwaf.net. You don't have to do www, just fwaf.net. It'll go right to our website. You can hit, there's a donate button there. Um, my personal phone number's on there. Everybody feel free to call me with any questions, or even if y'all are just coming down and you want some intel, you can call me, um, and we can arrange. I can give you the address where to send the donation to, if it's tackle or stuff you're not using. Um, all that stuff uh, can be utilized. There's two ways that we utilize that stuff. For anglers out there, you got a rod and reel that's sitting there, a combo or whatever you're not using. Um, so at every event that we put on, and whenever we take a vet out, we always hook them up with a tackle pack. Like I said earlier, we give them a rod and reel, but we also give them tackle because how Fishing with America's Finest works is we get out there and we don't just take the vets fishing. We actually are teaching fishing.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, when the event or the series of outings ends, that individual has a pretty strong idea of what they need to be doing. They know how to tie their hooks, they know how to rig the baits, they know everything. And so then our idea is that it's something that whenever they feel a little stressed or whatever, they could actually get out and continue to fish. They don't have to sit at home and stress and sit there with anxiety and stuff. We always tell them, you feel a little uptight. Listen, I'll tell you, I haven't served in the armed forces, and when I get stressed, the very first thing I do is hook that boat up to the back of that truck, and I head out there and I pick me up a rod and I go out there and cast and have me a good old time out there and take in all the scenery, and it just puts me at ease. So that's the same ideology that we like to teach the veterans.
Right.
And we like to make sure that they have the equipment to do so, especially initially. And then they can grow on it just like all of us do. They can go to the store and add their favorite colors and, you know, or 30 of them. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
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 I
Well,
look,
I'll see what it is. Like my dad always told me, you teach a man to fish, he can feed himself forever. But then you get a man a bass boat, and then he's got to go spend thousands of dollars on baits, rods, and it's a never ending process.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
But what is the easiest way? Let's uh, we know like to contact you through America's Finest, but if somebody wants a guide trip with you, Neal, what is the easiest way for somebody to contact you to go on a guide trip with you?
Throw my number up there. You can call me directly at 954-822-1481. It's been my number forever. Um, I'm monitored 24/7 because of the work I do, and you know,
What
give
was
me
that again? 954?
822-1481. Yeah, you guys can call me anytime.
Yep. So
That's it. That's it.
so prank phone call him all you want. Um, it's hard to do nowadays. I can remember growing up, we'd prank phone call everybody. It was fun. Now, since caller ID, it's kind of screwed that up. but
And
yeah, guys, this is one of the reasons why. Like, I mean, we really again this. I mean, we're at almost 50 minutes of being on the doing the podcast, and like we had Neal on, and this happened the last time we had Neal on. We just get to chit chatting, and I mean, and to me, Neal, it means so much to have a friend that does as much as you do with the veterans and stuff. Because my family has fought for this country. I mean, up to my oldest brother was served in the Navy for 24 years and was able to retire, and and then like from my grandfather flying a B-24 in World War II, and I mean we've had uncles and aunts and cousins and stuff that have served in the military, and for you to do what you do, Neal, man, I mean it's an honor to be able to call you our friends, and and I know that I mean, there's you will one day see the benefits. I mean, you get to see it when you take them out, but when it's your time, and you get up and standing at them pearly gates, the good Lord's going to say, "Well done, brother." And
thank
so,
you.
Yes.
Thank
um,
Amen.
I. I mean, I seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I mean, it is an honor to be able to call you friend, and so because I mean, it means a lot, and this younger generation does not understand
you.
what it means to have this freedom that we have, and what it costs for us to have this freedom. Um, and if you don't know what it costs to have this freedom that we have, go look at Arlington Cemetery.
Yeah.
Go to Washington D.C. and see the wall. I mean, and there's other memorials around. I mean, all over the United States that has every big city is going to have a national cemetery. Go in there and see what it took for us to have what we have. Um, but again, Neil, thank you so much, and uh,
Thank- and thanks for that. Um, I think that's up to folks, parents, teachers. If y'all are on this uh, podcast, y'all, that's something we need to teach, man. And everybody should know about the
yeah,
sacrifices, you know, that folks make for this country.
yeah,
Freedom is not free, and um, I've seen it firsthand. It's not only the soldiers, and it's not only the military, because soldier is for folks that don't know, a soldier is the army. So you have the Marine Corps. You mentioned your brother, the Navy. Those are
yeah,
not soldiers. The military. Uh, it doesn't just affect those individuals. It affects families.
yeah,
It affects the families, because to see your loved one come home and it's not the same individual that left,
yeah,
messed up and totally messed up, it destroys families. So war has a huge impact on Americans,
yeah,
and Americans, uh, we all should fly our flags high, and we should understand what it takes, that we're all free to do what we
yeah,
love. We're here talking about fishing, and we all get to fish and do what we want to do, and we all got our families and we all got our stuff, and there's a reason for that, because individuals go off every day. Even now, we're not at war, and I know this because I had the honor of working with the military for 17 years. We got folks all over the world right now,
yeah,
and a lot of them are in COVID type of stuff going on, but we're constantly got folks all over, and they're constantly fighting for our freedoms and our liberties, and you know it's something we should honor.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something we
That
should
is.
honor. We've gotten away from that. I haven't personally, and I know you folks, y'all haven't gotten away from it, and it's an honor to call y'all friends. But everybody should take note of what is being discussed here tonight, and we should all honor these folks, because
Yeah.
if it ain't for them, we just ain't gonna be able to do what we do, because freedom is not free.
No.
Yes.
So, and I can like you talked about like it affects the family, like even just me personally, like because of my brother and stuff. With being in the Navy, he was gone 6 to 8 months at a time, and then he'd come home for 5 months or 6 months, and then he's turning right back around and going right back out. But I mean, just like what you're saying, like with the Army, Marines, and Air Force and all that, a lot of them are going out for a year, 2 years at a time, being overseas and not seeing that family. They're they have there's no telling how many military or veterans that are overseas that their wife has had a baby while they're overseas and they have not seen that baby at all, and so you are very correct on that. It affects the not just the husband or not just the veteran, but it affects the family in itself because again we don't know where they could just say, well, we're heading this way, we're just going to head out that way. They can't tell you where they're going, but so you don't know the danger that they're in. You just pray that that they're safe and that God keeps His hand of protection over them. And I mean, because my brother, I don't know if you remember, like when he was out. Uh, and the USS Cole had that boat just come up and they blew themselves up right at the USS Cole, and they had that. I think it's like it put like a 30-40 yard hole into the destroyer, and my brother was part of that fleet that was with them when that happened, and I mean, it could have very well easily been his destroyer that they blew up or
Yeah.
tried to blow up or sink. But uh, and so I mean, again, you hit the nail on the head that it affects the family and seeing that stuff. I mean, us as humans should not see anybody blowing anybody up. I mean, that's just stuff that you cannot get over. And um, but Neil, hats off to you, brother. I mean, because you are doing. I say it's the Lord's work because I mean the good Lord is working through you, using what you've done your whole life of being outdoors and being able and your passion of fishing. He has put that in you to where your love for the country has it's gone out to where you realize that was having 22 veterans die a day, and
On
if
American
you
soil.
if you can get that 22 down to 21, you have done. I mean
Yep.
that makes a big difference. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
but um, so let's not to kind of get all sad and sappy on everybody with all that. I mean, but it needs to be out there. People needs to know. I mean, because uh, I have a good friend. He was a supervisor. His wife is a principal now. And 9/11 came up, and this was 5 or 6 years ago. 9/11 came up, and the kids that she was a teacher at this time, the kids, when 9/11 came up, did not know anything about what happened at 9/11. And that is sad. When things are where they're trying to hide what's happened in the past and trying to hide that. Um, and that's my opinion only, is the reason why the country's in the shape that it is because they don't want people to know. They don't want the country to reunite like what happened. The U.S. reunited. I mean, came together. It did not matter white, black, brown, purple, green, whatever. It did not matter what you were. United States came back, and it they I can there was what was it, a movie where is there in Pearl Harbor where the Japanese general says after they done what they bomb Pearl Harbor, the general says he he said that that they have woken a sleeping dragon, and after 9/11 they rewoken that dragon, and now I have a feeling that like that the younger generation will not know when that time comes because it's going to happen again. Something's going to happen, and I don't think that America will reunite with the younger generation.
Uh, I hope you're not accurate with that, Colin. I hope that you know Americans come together. I'm
Yeah,
hoping real soon folks start to realize, how we got to where we're at, and things change, man.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I
And
definitely I definitely hope things get back,
yeah,
you know, where folks are appreciating and honoring uh, the folks that
yeah,
provide our freedom, and most importantly, the colors that all
yeah.
represents.
Yeah, and realize when I say that it's not when I say that my blood bleeds a certain color, I'm not talking about my favorite college football team or favorite baseball team. When I say my colors
Okay.
red, white, and blue, that means I'm all USA, and that's what it's all about. And so,
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
but Neil, man, we I mean, I told Norman, I was like, I've got questions I want to ask Neil. We're sitting right at an hour right now. And we really haven't been able to ask no questions. But let's real quick.
Well, you know what that means, Colin, don't you?
It's
It
been a
just
great.
it gives us another excuse to have him back on, to
Oh,
come
we're
back
gonna
on
have
and
him back on.
for, for the
It's
rest of the story.
yeah. So, but Neil, let's can if can you give your sons like if somebody wants to go tarpon fishing?
Yeah.
Um, does he have a page, or does he? How can they get in contact with him? Can they just contact you and say, "Hey, let's. I want to do some tarpon."
Yeah. Tarpon and snook, snapper. Yeah. Get a little salty. Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. And let me tell you, for folks that want to come down, if you want to do, a couple days in fresh water and hit, peacock bass, largemouth, snakehead, snook, freshwater tarpon, invasive species, and then uh, the next day go out or that night go out. I mean, depending on what you got in the gas tank, and get with Jake and go out and bang some big snook and tarpon at night. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. You could do a couple days or one day. It's up to folks that how much time and for folks that are up north, you can bring the family down. They can hit the beach and stuff, and dad can come out fishing, or mom can come out fishing. Leave dad on the beach, however it works.
yeah. However you want to do it.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, can real quick. Um, can you? I'm going to let you do a little boosting up and kind of telling everybody about Jake because Jake has some accolades under his belt that a lot of people that may not know, and they may just hear us talking about him and just saying, "Oh, he's just another guide." Um, but talking to you and talking to Jake and stuff like that, Jake gave up a pretty sweet little deal, and now he's out doing his guiding stuff. Can you tell like just talk about Jake a little bit because I enjoy hearing the story myself, but
yeah, I would love to. I would love to. So, Jake Stark's my son, and he started fishing the junior circuits when he was just a little thing. I want to say about 5 years old. He came through the junior circuits, and pretty much dominated the southern trails down here for junior anglers. Uh, Won everything you could possibly imagine. Won Angler of the Year multiple times, and just totally destroyed it. Won several small boats and um, and then went to the Northern Division and destroyed that. And they told him, go back south. They don't want him up there. And won a boat up there and just killed it. He was one of the youngest anglers ever to be picked up by Team Daiwa. Um, I want to say he was I think he was 14 years old, and he was, on with Daiwa with Ishman Rowe and Brett Height, and some really outstanding anglers. Um, was friends with Mike Iaconelli, and just he was an unbelievable angler, doing really unique stuff like I talked about. Down here that everybody wants to throw that heavy line and stuff, but I could tell you there were tournaments down here where we would throw 4 and 6 pound test and heavy cover. And I remember Jake, telling me, "Hey, Pop, how if we get a fish in these cold fronts when the fish wouldn't bite, how are we gonna get the fish out of cover?" And I said, "Well, listen, ain't nobody catching no fish. We got to get the fish on first, and then we'll worry about getting them through out of the cover." You know what I mean?
That's right.
And he would get out there um, from Brett Hyde. Actually, I remember Jake telling me that Brett talked to him about drop shotting, and nobody would ever think that in South Florida you would drop shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Brett used to talk to him about drop shotting on ultralight tackle, but also heavy. And folks don't think about this, but heavy tackle drop shotting, where you put a big old weight, a 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce weight on the bottom of the drop shot, and putting your bait up higher. So when you punch in this thick stuff, and that weight drops to the bottom, typically if you're punching, the bait's underneath that heavy weight, and if you got all that sediment on the bottom, you're dropping that bait and it's sinking down into the sediment.
Right.
If you put that big weight on the bottom, you put your bait up top, the big weight's dropping into the sediment, and what's up there in the fish's face? Your bait.
Yeah.
And so Jake used to do a lot of drop shot, and he's probably even now, man. I mean, it's scary. I don't, when he picks up that drop shot down here, and once again, that's not a technique that you would normally see in South Florida.
Mm-mm.
He'll put a hurting on you, man, with that drop shot. It's scary, And he puts all the little baits like you would up north, and that's where I think folks need to think about um, to broaden their thought pattern. You know, stuff up north works down south, stuff down south works up north. And even offshore stuff that I could tell you, as a flats fisherman, there's a lot of stuff that we use in the flats that works in fresh water. So, guys, gals, you need to broaden your spectrum, man, and think a little bit outside the box, because don't, and I can tell you right now, Sunday, the King of the Glade series, those guys were right here.
Yeah.
You got to open that up, man. And that was the difference from second place and 30th and 40th place. You got to think a little bit outside the box, man, and put those fish in the boat, folks.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, because all the different techniques work all over, and the old match the hatch, and look at what's swimming around in the water. Take a few minutes, step back, um, and look at your temperatures, and think, man, and you can dial it in. Um, and let me tell you something. Get back to Jake. I can tell you, y'all are talking about me as a guide and a tournament angler. Um, I used to sit there, and we get in these big tournaments, and whether it be a local tournament or BFL, and I say, oh, look at this one, look at that one, and folks, let me tell you something. My son used to always tell me that I'll never forget, and I think about it all the time now. The fish don't know if it's Brett Hyde up there fishing, or Mike Evganelli, or Neal Stark. The fish don't know who's up there, folks. So put all that stuff out. Don't matter who's in the boat, man. It matters
No.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Norman and I, we say this all the time. Fishing is probably the most level field that you can get into, where you can be the best of the best. You could be that Jacob Wheeler, uh, and or you could be some weekend angler just going out, and you have just as much chance because it is. I mean, you have is just as much likely chance. I mean, I've been beaten by I've fished tournaments to where like we had women fishing against us, and I've got my rear end handed to me, Neil, by some women. I'm like, how in the world? And I've had like 12, 13-year olds come in fishing with their dad, and they've smoked me. And I'm
Well, in
like,
all honesty, that's not too hard to do, but
Well,
but
that's why you don't know about the shirts right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what though, that's what makes fishing so great. Fishing doesn't discriminate uh, against age. It doesn't discriminate against gender. Whether you're 60, 70 years old, whether you're 8 or 9 years old, whether you're a male, a female, fishing doesn't discriminate. Anybody could get out and fish, at the highest skill level uh, out there.
yeah,
So, there's women out there that are better than most of the men.
yeah.
And there's, uh, you know,
I say it
folks
won't be
that
too long
are
until
older
we
that are
see.
a heck of a
Yeah,
lot better than we are. That have so much more experience and have done it before, but they could still get out there.
yeah,
And fishing's one of the only sports that you could actually, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, no matter if you're a woman, you're a man, you could get out and compete on the same playing field against the same people, and still be able to compete and still be able to kick butt.
yeah.
Yep.
Now, my last question, because we don't want to keep you too long, Neil. But I'll ask a question, and then I'll have Norman ask you our final question, which we've already asked you before. But um, my last question for you is: did it surprise you when the Bassmasters Opens just left Okeechobee? Did it surprise you that all the top 10 was using a spinning reel?
No, no. So for years, I've used spin and tackle in the Everglades, and it's one of my preferred weapons. I love spin and tackle, and you know, guys used to be, and I'm going way back when. Guys used to call them Yankee sticks. What are you doing with all them Yankee sticks on your boat? Because once again, down here in South Florida, bait caster, 65-pound braid, 80-pound braid, thrown into the thick stuff. And I mentioned it earlier. You know, um, we've had huge success here in South Florida.
Yeah,
Jake and I, um, throwing super light lines on spinning rods. And you know, Jake used to tell me, and I mentioned it earlier, how are we gonna get them out? And I used to lean off the front of the boat, and he used to tap that trolling motor, and I said, man, we're gonna pluck some weeds, and I get out there and start pulling the lily pads out of the way, man, to pop 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 to clear that line so he could get that fish out in open water and get him on the reel. And so, folks, we spend all this money for these rod and reels. Okay, the rod is the shot that puts the tension on the fish, and the reel is your drag. You hardly hear folks getting fish on a drag anymore. They want to just set up on them on this heavy line, rip them out of the stuff, throw them in the boat. But there's times, and this weekend was one of those. They're not going to hit that heavy line. They're
mm-hmm.
not going to hit the big lures. They're not going to, you know, they're not going to hit that stuff. You got to drop down. You got to go finesse. You got to go to your light tackle, super light line, super, small stuff to catch those fish in these fronts. Uh, they're not going to hit that big stuff, and let me tell you, uh, there's some great fishermen. I mean, the King Series, once again, I honestly believe it pulls in the best of the best. And the difference is what I was telling folks earlier, to think outside that box. And that's getting skinny, man. That's picking up that spinning rod.
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't see that years ago, but now you
Mm-mm.
listen, Aaron Martin, for years, he kicked everybody's butt and he was
Mm.
on that spinning rod, man.
Yeah.
You know, now we're starting to see, you just saw this past week, Scott Martin on a spinning rod.
Yeah.
Folks, it's time for y'all to start putting some spinning rods in the boat, man, because you're all missing out. We
Yeah.
caught 140 fish. Guys weren't, when we went out fishing, guys weren't catching those type of peacock numbers uh, on bait casters, man. We went
Mm.
light line. Y'all saw what we did.
Yeah.
We went light line, you know, small stuff, and we put a bunch of fish in the boat. We only
Yeah.
lost one fish, and that's because Colin was, you know, he wasn't reeling fast enough. But you,
I blame that on Norman.
yeah, but
Yeah.
y'all see, you know, what getting light can do. I mean, and and let me tell you, when we were using, you know, I consider that, you know, a moderate level tackle. You know, so you know, I can tell you in my arsenal, I got everything from 6 pound test all the way up to the big stuff. And you know, and for folks that are listening, you know, you get to a 6 pound braid, you're talking about 2 pound diameter fluorocarbon line. It's like thread,
Yeah.
but it doesn't break at 6 pounds. If you actually put it on you know on a meter, you're up about 10 to 12 pound test. It's strong stuff. And if you black that out, man, you got fluorocarbon now, and it's like thread. The fish can't see that. And another thing is, for folks that are listening, the lighter the line and the lighter the hook that you could get away with to catch the fish that you're catching. These companies spend millions and millions of dollars designing their baits to make it look natural. The bigger the hook you put in that bait and the heavier the line, you change the way that bait swims. And let's go the other way. The lighter the line you put and the smaller the hook you put in those baits, now you're getting to where those companies design that bait, how it's actually to look.
Yeah.
And I tell folks, and let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you're in artificial bait or live bait or whatever folks are doing, if you guys are fishing a worm, a live worm, or a plastic worm, or a shiner, or a jerk bait, the heavier the line, it changes the way the bait works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you really want it to look really natural and you want it to do what it's supposed to do, you got to go as skinny as you can on the line diameter and the smaller the hook. And it can go the other way too now, folks. If you're in shallow water and you know and the bait goes 12 foot and you put a heavier diameter line on it, it's going to come up a little bit. It ain't going to go 12 foot. It may go 10 foot. So you could use it the other way too.
Yeah.
But the lighter you go, the more natural your presentation's going to be.
Yeah.
And I believe the more fish you're going to catch.
That is I mean, and that's just not in Florida deal. That's all over. You can
Yeah.
utilize that
Yes, it
all over. And so,
is.
but we've had you on for an hour and 20 minutes, and so Norman, let's take away our infamous last question, brother.
Neil, if you were to have one person on your boat, and now this person could be passed away, or he or she could still be with us, who would that person be, and why would you want to fish with them for the day on your boat with you?
Well, there's a lot of folks I could have uh, fishing on my boat and, thinking professional and what have you. But I got to tell you, folks, I started fishing with this individual when he was 7 years old. Um, I just finished up taking second place with him. We've had some thirds and some firsts. I absolutely love fishing with my son. Um, it's uh, it's so special to me. I can't even begin to tell you. Um, Jake just finished college. He had quit fishing for years while he went to college. And, he wanted to focus. I absolutely love fishing with my boy for several reasons. Not just because he's my son, but it's because of what we discussed earlier. Um, he's an unbelievable angler. Um, he can, you know, it started when he was little and he would be behind and there'd be 2 or 3 minutes left of the tournament. And I tell him, Jake, you need a big bite. And he would tell me, Dad, chill out. It's coming. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I got 3 minutes left. And, and he would get a bite, man, and put this massive fish in the boat. And here we are, he's 23, coming up on 24 years later, and he still does that crazy stuff,
Yeah.
and I admire it. So
Yeah.
um, uh, that's one. And if I had to go professionally, um, I think I'd like to fish with Jacob Wheeler. I spoke with him quite a bit last year. Um, he's an awesome guy for folks that haven't had the opportunity to talk to him. Um, I think he is similar to myself in the sense that, especially as a professional, I think he gets the whole outside the spectrum of fishing. Uh, Outside of the big money and the fame and fortune and all that stuff. And another one is Randy Howell. He's another unbelievable guy
Yeah.
that I think feels that same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that dude. So yeah, those are two guys outside of the family that I would love to fish with.
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
hopefully, when we get down there to fish with you here in July, we will. We might try to see if Jake has a free minute to be able to take some goofy guys that just does a podcast out to catch a tarpon or some
yeah.
snook or something. So
Well, that's a on fire time to do it, man. Is in July. That's some great fishing
yeah.
in the bay here for sure. Yeah,
So what's up? We got Lanham Farms just hopped on, and I take it that's probably Lance that's on there. But they he has a son named Presley. Yeah, he does a little podcast as well, and it's a phenomenal podcast. But the thing about Presley though, Neal, is Presley's probably about 5'2", 5'3", little guy. He's a senior this year, but last year he won the Tennessee State Championship in high school
awesome,
fishing. So
awesome.
he he's a little in stature, but he swings a big stick. So,
He's a beast on the water.
so we love having them on, seeing them and chit
Tell them to come
chatting.
down south, man. I got a trip for
Heck yeah, Lance, you heard that. You heard it, and we'll do this real quick. If you here's a way how you can reach him, Lance. If
them.
you
Yeah,
want, if you go down south to the Everglades,
yeah,
here's how you can contact him. But
yeah. Free trip. Come on down.
Let's see. He says y'all fishing bass fishing in the Everglades. Um, we done some peacock fishing with Neil last year, Lance, and we caught over 100, easily over 100 peacocks last year. Just destroyed them. We could have caught more, but we did have somebody whose boat we were in decided not to put gas in the boat, so we could not be able to travel as much as what we wanted to. But it's all right. We found them. Neil found them for us, and he put us on them.
You
And
guys are brutal.
so, but I tell you, Lance, that if you go out, or anybody, if you go out with Neil, it's going to be one of the best guide trips that you have ever been on. It is well worth the time to go and spend out on the boat. Yes, top water. I cannot tell you what bait it is, but I will say it as he said. Oh wow, he said sounds like a blast. Top water question mark. Yes, it is top water. It sounds like somebody's throwing cinder blocks into the water when they hit it. It is a blast. But other than that, I do have one more thing I want to say to y'all guys. I'm going to do this and take off Neil's number real quick. Norman and I went to the East Tennessee Fishing Expo in Knoxville here a couple of weeks back. We ran into this. We was walking through and we seen this booth. They had this little kid. What Norman he could not have been 10 to 12 years
You
old. The max, the
10,
max.
11 max.
Yeah, I mean, we think he's probably like 9 or whatever. He was a young feller, but he's if he's not a salesman when he grows up, he's missing his opportunity. And so they the booth that he was in makes this. It's called a crappie ruler. Um, Phenomenal. They designed this. They you can put any kind of graphics on it. It is phenomenal. And here's the thing: crappieruler.com. They're actually going to make us, Norman. They're going to make us some crappie rulers. That's going to have the Deck Talk podcast logos and stuff on that. So we're going to do that, and I'm probably going to end up giving that one away. Norman might get, I don't know, I might be putting words into Norman's mouth, but Norman may, after we get the Deck Talk Pod one, that might be a giveaway that we're going to do. I know it will be for the one that I have, but
Yeah, it'll be the first one that I have too. And once we get our and also I think once they do the Deck Top podcast, they're also going to be probably on their website for sale as well. So you can get them
yeah.
with our logo on 'em
So
if you.
but when I was talking to that little kid and he found out that we had a podcast and found out, and I mean, he was on it. He asked, like, how many views do you get? And I asked him, like, what do you want to know for January or for all times? And he said, what about January? And so, and when I told him that here this past January was the best month that we had over 5 million views on for the Deck Talk podcast. And when as soon as I told him that, he went to his dad, and he came back and he said, "Hey, we," he says, "we want to give you two of these. If you, we'll give you two of these if you put us on your podcast. You say something about us on the podcast." So, little guy, we done our part of it. We thank you, um, and just keep on being a salesman that you are. You're going to do great things. So, but other than that, Lance, you need to holler at Neil. You're going to have a blast. So,
You'll have
um,
fun, and you'll catch some big ones too.
yeah.
Not only numbers, but some big ones.
Yeah, and you won't have Norman on the boat, so you won't have to worry about somebody throwing across and knocking fish off your line. So, so but we're going to get off here, guys, and we definitely appreciate. I mean, we still have a little less than 1,100 people watching this right now, and it's just phenomenal just to see the love that we're getting from y'all, and to see that y'all are willing to watch two goofy guys and whoever the guests that we have come on and just talk fishing. and so we wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for y'all and our special guests. And again, so Neal, thank you for that.
Hey,
And
hey, Colin, can I give a shout out to a couple of my sponsors?
Yes,
you
sir.
are more than welcome to do that.
Thank you, bud. Thank you. Well, first off, I'd like to start off with one of my biggest sponsors, and that's the man upstairs, the good Lord. I'd like to give a shout out to Bass Pro, uh, Cabela's, Yeti, Hook and Tackle. They supply all our uniforms. Yeti, Lou, supplies us with rod and reels to give out. Hero Rod Series, um, Livingston Lures, Rapala Lures, Gambler Baits, Power Pole, man. Power Pole's been huge for us over the years, keeping our boats anchored so we can fish. Hog Tech, uh, catch Please Release Me, Suffix Line, Atlantic Marine Store. And we'd like to give a huge shout out to the United States Marine Corps, the United States Army, United States Air Force, the United States Navy, United States Coast Guard, and keeping us propelled going down the channels and out in the Everglades, Yamaha Motors.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, we uh, we couldn't have do it. I mean, that I know that with y'all's, I mean, you could not do everything that you do if you did not have the help of them guys. I would like to see. We do need you to send us pictures of the pontoon boats,
I would love.
and so because we want to do a post, we'll do a post about it, and I just want to know, do you have 10 foot poles on the pontoon boat, or you have 8 foot poles?
10 footers. 10.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah,
10
and
foot, 10 foot's the only way to go.
And I mean, I've never seen a pontoon with some poles on it, so it'd be interesting to see.
And also, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to Deck Talk, to Colin Burnett, Norman Lee. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you getting me on here and let me talk about and share what we do down here in the South in the Florida Everglades for our service folks, and it's real important to me, and
Yeah.
it's a place that touches my heart, and I look forward to connecting with you guys. Uh, in July. I'll see you up at the show, and then we'll come down here and we'll put it on it, man, for sure.
Well,
Thank you,
I
Neil.
can't wait.
It's always an honor and a privilege to talk with you and share stories with you. And for what you do, I mean, we're just honored to be in your presence, man. And we mean that from the bottom of our hearts too. For what you do, dude.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Norm. But before you say all those nice things, man, let me just tell you, next this year when you come to, we're gonna move you to the back a little bit, and Colin and I are going to the front deck. You know what I'm saying? I love you, brother, but the way you show that line all over everybody and stuff, I can put some
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So,
I tell you what, to fish with Colin and to fish with Neil, you got to have some thick skin if you're in my shoes.
and I'm telling you right now, man, I'm chipping in for some gas this year.
I had half the tank. I just didn't know you were going to run us halfway to Miami.
Jeez, man.
it, but the thing about it is, I mean, guys, where we put in and how far we really ran literally was not that far, was it, Neil?
No,
I was worried more about the gas in the truck we had to get to a gas station when we came off the
Yeah.
water than the gas in the boat.
Yeah. And
not on my part, folks, but we went budget on that trip. That's all I can.
yeah, that trip right there was a blast. We got to the boat ramp and Norman was driving and he parks the truck and he says, "Hey, just we got to remember we got to find a gas station here before we leave." And I was like, "All right." I was like, so how much gas we got in there? We had 8 miles, guys, in the truck that we had to go. Thank goodness that it had a little bit of reserve because we had to go. I guarantee you, it was every bit of almost 20 miles that we had to drive. And I'm over here thinking, Norman's going to have a fun time pushing this truck and boat with it. Because I was like, he ran it out of gas. It's him. But then, yeah. So, but guys, we're going to get off here. Fat Boy's got to eat. And thank you again. And I hope to,
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you,
yep.
Neil. Always fun, man.
Pleasure.
And
Pleasure.
remember, live the passion.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Live the passion, guys.